Welcome to Roots and Branches of Lehi, the podcast where we get to know the faces, stories, and lives that make up our community. I'm Ryan Harding, and I started this podcast as a way for us all to connect with the people we live alongside. Growing up in a small town, I learned that connections go beyond blood. They're built through shared experiences, friendships, and the moments we celebrate together. Each week, we'll sit down with someone new from Lehi to share their unique story, their passions, and what they love most about living here. So whether you've been here for years or just arrived, join us as we deepen our roots and reach out to our branches one story at a time. Welcome, Rick Howard, to Roots and Branches of Lehi. Excited to have you on the podcast here. So
here I am.
Yeah, here you are. Get to know you for a little bit. So talk to me a little bit about, where'd you grow up and stuff like that? Are you from here, Lehi originally?
No, so I was born in Southern California, raised there till I was about 12.
Okay.
And then my family moved to Hawaii.
Okay.
And we lived in Hawaii. The first year there, my father passed away of a heart complication.
Okay.
And we stayed there for a few more years. And then my brother, who is an attorney and was like the family, lead, said we need to move the family back to the mainland because my mom was there with 5 kids.
Sure.
And so we moved back, and he moved us to Utah. We didn't have any family in Utah.
Okay.
But he said you need to be around family. It's like, well, we don't have any family. So he moved us to Utah.
Okay.
So we moved to Orem. I went to a couple years of high school in Hawaii and then a couple years of high school in Orem.
Okay.
And then graduated, and myself and a friend were down at one of the apartment complexes at BYU.
Yeah.
And there was a girl that he knew there. It wasn't his girlfriend, just a girl that he knew. And we went over to see him.
Yeah.
And she said, you need to get to my friend, you need to go out with my sister.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if you're going to line him up with somebody, you got to line me up with somebody.
Sure.
So she said, well, you can go out with her friend.
Uh-huh.
And so on Valentine's Day 48 years ago, I met my bride. We've been married 45 years. And,
oh, wow.
And we met on a blind date on Valentine's Day. And we came to Lehi. The Colonial House was made into like a dance hall.
Okay.
And so they had a Valentine's Day dance. And that's what they said, well, take her out. She's from Lehi, and nobody, why would nobody would come to Lehi? It was a podunk town. Nobody come out here. It's like I drive out here. It's like, who in the crap would want to live out here? But we got married and moved to Lehi, and have been here ever since.
Okay. So how long is that then? How many years?
Well, we've been married 45, so it's probably 43.
Okay.
I mean, we lived in, I was working for a lumberyard in Springville at the time. And so we lived and she's finishing up her teaching certificate. Okay. And so she finished that up. We lived in a basement apartment in Springville, and I'd drive to Springville. Anyways, and that's kind of what got me into emergency medicine. I was going to school to be an electrical automation. Yeah. And our first baby was born. So we were married in 81. And so in 82, our first baby was born with a heart defect. Okay. And so Susan finished her schooling but didn't take a job teaching because we had this going on. So she would spend the time at the hospital. I would work and then go up to the hospital. And so we decided we better move to Lehi where her family is because the baby was pretty complicated. Sure. Passed away at 4 months. And so my wife said, she felt that I had a knack for this medical stuff. She said I could diagnose things that, I would ask the nurses, well, what could it be this or could it be? I didn't have any medical background. It just seemed logical to me. Yeah. And so then my boss at the lumberyard said, you should probably try, maybe getting into an EMT program. And that was in 1984. Okay. And so I went at St. Mark's Hospital. They had an EMT program. So I went through it at St. Mark's Hospital and got my EMT in 84 and was basically hired on an interim basis until I got my certification by Lehi. Okay. I got that January of 85, and so then I was moved into one of the positions. So my certificate's been continuous since 1985. And so I worked Lehi Ambulance. They were separate at the time. Lehi Ambulance and Fire were separate. And I did that, responding from home on ambulance calls, still working at the lumberyard. Sure. And then I kind of thought maybe I want to do something different. So I went to work at Geneva as an EMT, and I spent probably 3 months there. And another job came open at another place, Hercules, up in Magna, and I switched and went up there, and still working for Lehi Ambulance. Sure. And started working in the fire department for Hercules. Okay. And so I got my fire certification. So I had both certifications, even though Lehi Ambulance, Lehi Fire were separate.
Sure.
I just got the certification so I could work for Hercules.
Yeah.
And then I had a good friend of mine. She had gotten her nursing degree, and she says, "Why don't you get your nursing degree?" And I went, "Well, okay." So I talked to Susan and said, let's maybe go down that route.
Yeah.
So at the time, I had already tested, to get on Provo Fire. There wasn't a lot of fire jobs around. Provo and Orem, I think, were the only full-time in this valley. I didn't get that job, and so I decided, well, I could go to school and get my paramedic and maybe get a job, or I can go to, because there was a nursing shortage in the early 80s, or I can get my nursing degree and definitely get a job.
Sure.
So I decided, well, I'll do that. So I got my nursing, and during that time, a friend of mine who's manager of the emergency room at American Fork, she made a position, because we had a nursing shortage, and I had my EMT advanced, and so I could do IVs and stuff like that. And so she made a position for me as an ER tech. They didn't have him at American Fork, and so I was the first one, and worked as a second. So there was a nurse, and they usually work with two nurses, but there was a nurse and then me as an ER tech, but I could do a lot of the stuff that, the other drugs I couldn't push and stuff, but I could do lines and draw blood and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I did that through nursing school, still working in Lehi on the ambulance, running calls here, finished my nursing, and then I moved right into an RN position. And I had quit Hercules because they wouldn't let me, they wouldn't let me go to school and still work there.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I quit up there.
Okay.
And finished my schooling, worked for IHC in the emergency room.
Yeah.
And anyways, American Fork was good. They were good to me.
Yeah.
But there was something else I needed to do. So unfortunately, there was a doctor that I knew that, I think his name is Dave Nelson, was at Utah Valley, and he was killed in a plane crash. And the interim nurse manager at Utah Valley called me up. She was one of my nursing instructors, and she asked me if I'd come down there to cover so the nurses can go to the funeral. Sure, no problem. So I went down there and covered the ER while they went to the funeral, and then she said, "Why don't you stay and continue picking up shifts for us?" Yeah. So I continued picking up shifts for them, still working at American Fork full-time and pick up shifts down there. And then I decided, I don't want to do that anymore. So I quit Utah Valley. I went PRN part-time at American Fork. I went up to LDS Hospital and became one of the nurses up there in their trauma center at LD, because that was the level 1 trauma center. So I worked as a trauma nurse up there, still picking up shifts in American Fork. And then for Lehi Ambulance, I was their training officer because of my medical background. And
Sure.
I had a bunch of certifications that would benefit the ambulance. I don't remember exactly when we combined. Ed Collins was city manager, and it was kind of funny because it was EMS and fire, and we were separate, and there was no desire. There was no desire for ambulance people. Only a few people wanted to, but there was no desire for ambulance people to become fire certified, and no desire for fire guys to become ambulance certification.
So it was a totally separate unit.
Totally separate. And we were in separate buildings. There was a building right here off the library that was the old police station, and they kind of built a building off to the side of that. It's been since torn down, but that's where our ambulance shed was, right? And then across the street was where the fire department was. And so I had my fire certs, because of working at Hercules, and they decided the fire department was, hiring, would hire fire people. And so I said, I'll do that. Yeah. So I did, so we were completely separate. So I had the meetings I had to go to for ambulance, I had the meetings I had to go to for fire. Sure. And early 90s, I would think. Okay. Ed Collins, it was kind of funny because they took us in, they took all the fire department, they said all the fire department, all the ambulance were meeting in city council chambers. And he walks in and basically racks a shotgun and says, your departments are now married. So if you're going to stay, if you're fire, you're going to stay, you have to get your EMT certificate. If you're EMT and you're going to stay, you have to get your fire certificate. Yeah. So they didn't force a lot of people out, but there were some that crossed over.
Luckily, you already had yours. So
already had it.
You were good.
I already had it. As a matter of fact, when a lot of the Lehi guys that became management and fire went to get their fire certs, I was in that class. I just wasn't affiliated with them. I was there with somebody else.
Sure, sure.
So, and that was a new thing. Fire departments they would do their in-department training, and then more departments required the certifications, and I already had those. And so, stayed training officer, still working at the trauma center.
Yeah.
And then running calls here, when I'm not. I mean, we weren't full-time fire or EMS, so we would respond from home. Sure. Used to be an old air raid sign on top of the building, and you could hear that go off, and then we got pagers. Mm-hmm. Pagers would go off, and whoever got down here would go on the calls. Yeah. And so one day I was at American Fork Hospital. I was in the bathroom, and on the wall, this was early, probably later. No, it was early 90s. On the wall, Sandy City Fire Department was looking for a medical officer. Okay. And they wanted a nurse. They wanted a nurse with fire certs. They wanted a nurse with EMS certs. And I said, well, I got all that. Yeah. So I applied, and they offered me a job. But by then, I was a charge nurse in the trauma center. Okay. So charge nurse, I don't know, I was a level 14 or 15, and mm-hmm. so I was only one of the nurses that could charge the department. In other words, the shift manager for the department. Sure. Okay. And so my wage was a little bit more than just a regular nurse because I had that certification. Yeah. So they offered me the job. I figured out what my wage was or whatever, and I counter-offered, and I said, well, I'll do it for this. And they said, okay. So,
nice.
All right.
A little extra money.
Yeah, so I took it.
Yeah.
And I still stayed kind of full-time at LD. I was kind of a modified PRN because what I would do is before I left the hospital as a charge nurse, I was working 6 12-hour shifts in a row. Wow. So I'd work 3 at the end of one period and 3 at the beginning of the next, and then I'd have 8 days off. Okay. So then I could work fire.
Sure, during those 8 days,
right. So then when I took the job at Sandy, I went PRN PRN is, just on call at LDS, mm-hmm. and then on call at American Fork, and started working full-time at Sandy Fire. I came in at a captain's grade, had all the fire certs, had a bunch of other medical certs I was an instructor in all the AHA stuff, PALS, BLS, and ACLS, and so I did that. Mm-hmm. And at the time, Lehi still only had one station. They had started putting on some full-time people mm-hmm. Because they weren't getting too much funding from the city to maintain a full-time station. Sure. So they were putting people on like during the hot summer months for like wildland response. And so during that later 90s, they put on full-time staff. So mm-hmm. they had a full-time captain. The chief was always full-time, but he wasn't responding. Mm-hmm. He's administrative. They put on captains and fire crews. And so I was still up at Sandy as a captain, still the training officer down here, mm-hmm. and decided that I couldn't make the wage for a captain here was not what I was making up there. And so I decided, well, I'm not going to test to become a captain. Sure. So I continued training officer down here and working up there full-time, sometimes with the nursing. And then they started building that second station up on just off of 2100, 2200 up there, 2320 up there, up by the water pond. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. And they started building that station, and they decided they needed to have another management, which is called a battalion chief. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a true battalion chief, but so it was more like an administrative chief officer. Sure. And so I came and tested, and that offered a little bit more money. Mm-hmm. So I came and tested for that. Okay. And I got that position. Mm-hmm. So I was more as administrative level chief officer. I would still respond on big calls, and the chief officer is like if there's an incident command situation going on, that chief officer takes the command so the fire guys can do their work. Sure. So I left Sandy full-time in, I think, 2009. Okay. And so I worked there for almost 10 years, early 2000s, through the Olympics, and left about 2009. Came down here full-time as a battalion chief, mm-hmm. still picking up shifts at the hospital, and stayed there until I retired from there in 2017. Yeah. And was doing other things. I was teaching at UVU in the paramedic program mm-hmm. as an adjunct. I was working for a private Learjet air ambulance service. We transported patients all over the country. Yeah. I lecture, in EMS conferences, so I go and do that. So just
Yeah.
Keeps me off the streets.
Which is good. Which is good. Yeah. So you mentioned several things, but let me go back to the Olympics you just mentioned. What was your role with that? Did you?
So we started doing a bunch of training with the Olympics and doing some emergency services integration on how EMS would respond or how they would be integrated in with the Olympic stuff. And then I kind of honed in. My service was on the snowboarding venue.
Okay.
So I did my EMS. I worked as a nurse on the snowboarding venue. One of the docs up at the hospital said, you come with us. And so I did that, was nursing at snowboarding, which was fun.
Yeah, yeah. Any cool stories from that time?
No.
Just business as usual?
You just meet the snowboarders. They come in only when they were hurt. And a lot of times they were hurt and they never would come in.
Sure.
And so we did a lot of the rich and famous that would be in Southern California, jump in their little jet, fly up to Heber, get in a private car, drive higher up to Park City, and for some reason they're at 10,000 feet altitude when they're normally living at a zero.
Yeah.
And they come up there and now they're short of breath, they have chest pain. It's just like hello, and so we would get those people and help them understand why they're
why they're having a hard time.
Yeah, why they're having a hard time. So
sure.
Yeah, no big. The Olympics was a good experience. I don't know if I'd do it again, but
sure.
Olympics was good.
Yeah, good. Well, so going back to kind of the beginning here, you mentioned, so your dad had a heart attack, and you said, and your child had a heart problem, and stuff like that. Do you think, with your dad and your child, that obviously influenced, kind of going into that path?
Probably more a baby influenced me more. I was, was watching the nurses there, but it's mainly more my wife when I would ask, like when a person gets intubated, the tube goes into the lungs and it hits what's called the carina, where it's the break off at the two lungs, and if it goes down one side, you could still get oxygenation, but you wouldn't hear breath sounds on one side.
Sure.
And my wife said that, I don't remember, she goes, I'd ask him, his saturations aren't very good. Could his tube have been pushed down too far or whatever? And they, who's this telling us what? And I didn't have any background, and they went and they listened, they went, oh, yeah,
actually, he's right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, it just piqued my interest. I never, in a lot of calls that we would go on here in town and stuff, it just, all of that combined would just pique my interest. And side note, my daughter teaches math up at Sky Ridge. Yeah. And she's, a trained professional dancer. And when she was in college, she said she wanted to change her major from dance. And I said, dance to what? And she says, I want to be a math teacher. And I teased her and I said, you can't be a math teacher. She said, how come? I said, because the only numbers you know are 5, 6, 7, 8. She goes, that's not funny, Dad. But I asked her once. I said, why?
Yeah.
Why math teacher? Yeah. And she goes, because I get it. And I thought, that was my epiphany. It's just because I get it. And it's the same thing with what I do now. It's just like, it just seems to make sense to me. Yeah. And I just get it. Yeah. So.
And why do you think, you love it so much? And what part of it do you love? So you've been obviously doing this for a very long time.
Yeah.
Excuse me. What are some of the parts of the job that you do that really get you going? You say you get it, so you understand it, but what part, you probably obviously enjoy it too to some level, right?
Yeah. So, I probably should retire and just go away and make room for other people. But I'm when I retired from the fire department, you don't get insurance, and so I had to go back to work to get insurance. And I took a faculty job at UVU, and I teach in the paramedic program, and there's 2 of us that are full-time faculty, and Dexter does 2 sections, and I did 2 sections, and my 2 sections are medical and cardiac, and I love cardiac, and I love just figuring out, remembering the little nuances that you need to remember to diagnose different heart attacks and things like that, and it's just like a story that I like to tell, and it chokes me up sometimes, as I was working a fire here in South Lehi. Yeah. And, our names are on our helmets. And a kid walked up to me, and it wasn't a kid. The guy was 30-some-odd years old.
Sure.
And my wife had taught 3rd grade for 32 years here in Lehi. And this guy walked up to me. He goes, are you Mrs. Howard's husband? And I said, yeah. And he goes, would you tell her something for me? And I said, what's that? She goes, would you tell her she saved my life? And I said, how did she save your life? She goes, she taught me how to read. So here's a guy that's 30-plus years old, and he remembers his 3rd grade teacher made such an impact on his life. Yeah. And I asked her, and there are people now that come up to her. We were getting on a plane last week, and the TSA guy said, are you Mrs. Howard? Yeah, you taught,
Sure.
Anyways, and so the reason I like doing this is I like to have those students that are in my charge to have their aha moment. Mm-hmm. Because there's a chief, his name is John Eversole of the Chicago Fire Department, and he says, his quote is, I tell this to every class, mm-hmm. He said his quote is, do you know how many calls we go on a day? Is 1,120. How many of those calls do people expect perfection? 1,120. When somebody calls 911, they don't ask for 2 domestic firefighters in a pickup truck. They want 5 decathlon brain surgeons to come and solve their problem.
Sure.
And that's what I want. I don't want anybody to go, hey, I was taught by Rick Howard. I don't want that. I want them to have their aha moment, mm-hmm. and for them to be the best that they can be. And I asked these students, I said, when you guys get done with paramedic school or whatever, do you want you?
Yeah.
Are you the type of person that you want to come save you? And if you're not that type of person, let's fix you.
Yeah.
If you are, that's great.
Yeah.
And so that's, my son went through paramedic school, and he made it almost all the way through through my program.
Yeah.
He almost made it all the way through without them knowing it was my son. I don't care that he's my son. I just want him to have a good education and have a passion for the craft.
Sure.
And he does. He actually works for West Valley Fire. And that's all I want. Do you want you? I want somebody to respond, because your worst day sometimes is going to have to be my best day. If your worst day is not my best day, and your worst day is my worst day, then something bad's going to happen.
Sure. Sure. So the you brought up the teaching part. Is that one of the parts of your job that you really enjoy?
I really do. I just like to see them have their aha moment.
Yeah.
I like to travel. I like to teach in conferences.
Yeah.
I feel I have a style that I can reach EMS.
Yeah.
I do clinical education for a couple of companies.
Yeah.
And I just have a background that I can speak their language.
Yeah.
They can't BS me, because I've been there, done that, and bought that T-shirt many times.
Sure.
So
sure.
And I think relate with them. Mm-hmm. I can relate as being a new nurse. I can relate as being an old crotchety nurse. I can relate as being a new EMT. I can relate as being because I've been through that. And I swore to myself that I would never treat another student the way that I was treated during nursing school. And I just want them, because they're there to learn. Yeah. I just want them to learn. And if they don't understand, then let's hope you understand. Yeah. That's all I want. Yeah. Especially if I'm going to fall over dead. I want someone, if I'm looking up, I want somebody that I know knows what they're doing. I don't want to wake up and go, oh crap, that's
this guy?
That's my D student. It's like, that's all I need. So.
Yeah, you're working on my body?
Yeah.
So talk to me about how medicine, so you've obviously worked in hospitals, right? And helping people there. How does, EMT differ from, say, hospital stuff? So
a statement I like to use, what's obsolete, what's state of the art today is obsolete tomorrow. And the stuff that we're doing now was never thought of us doing in the field when we first started. It was funny because when we got Lehi all trained up to be advanced EMT, because we didn't have a paramedic service in Lehi. That came after I got hired full time.
Okay.
The city manager was Jamie Davidson, and he basically said, your main job as administrative, battalion chief is to get Lehi City a paramedic service. Okay, I can do that. So they had advanced EMTs, and some of the docs at the other hospital didn't recognize that. And I was EMS committee chair, and I would go to these meetings, and I would say, okay, we're not going to go to American Fork Hospital because the doctors don't let us do our level of certification, so we're just going to go another 5 minutes down the road and maybe go to Timpanogos. And IHC, what? You can't do that? Yeah, we can. Yeah. You probably want to talk to your docs and tell them that we are trained, because even now, the things that we're training our guys to do now, I tease them about reading EKGs. I ask them, I go, how many years and years did I learn to read EKGs in nursing school? And I say, none. Yeah. They don't teach that. Yeah. And so you're going to call an EKG a heart attack to the nurse that's answering the phone. She or he may be up on EKGs, and they may not. Yeah. That's okay. You just do what I tell you to do. And so they're doing things now that was never thought of, back in the day, in some practices. I mean, we put IVs in bones now. Really? It's and that was never thought of. And so
because before it was just getting them to the hospital and then the doctors doing those kind of things. Yeah, that would but hey, because I guess, is it just because time you only have so much time to do some of these things? And
so so if somebody's in what's called a full arrest situation, their heart is stopped. Yeah. ROSC, return of spontaneous circulation, occurs like in the first 20 minutes of somebody getting worked on. Yeah. And so if you time stamp that out, ROSC would occur in the back of an ambulance on the way to the hospital. And so the way it is now is we spend 40 minutes at home
Yeah.
working the patient, because there's nothing that my guys do different than what the hospital would do.
Sure.
They're going to do the exact same drugs, do the exact same procedures that an emergency room would do. We're
So just do 'em
not
there.
We're not moving the problem from point A to point B. We're doing it there.
Yeah.
If they pass away, then we don't bring them a body that's passed away.
Sure.
You know, but if we get ROSC, you know, then that's great, and off
Yeah.
we go. Right.
Yeah.
So that was never thought of.
Yeah.
You know, they always thought that doctors were the end all be all, and
Sure.
it's not. A lot of these things now can be done, and same with nurses. A lot of
Yeah.
nurses believe that paramedics, you know, are just, you know, a hiss and a byword. And
Sure.
they're just an extension from the emergency room in the field.
Yeah.
Right.
So are you glad to see that change?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
I mean, we were the first agency in this county that would read an EKG, identify that it would be a heart attack, and then bypass our local hospital, which was American Fork, and go to it's called a PCI, percutaneous cardiac intervention lab, a cath lab.
Yeah.
We'd bypass. So our policy was, if you read the MI, see that there's a heart attack going on, we would bypass American Fork
Yeah.
and go to Timpanogos where they could get their advanced procedure done.
Sure.
Orem says, no, we were the first ones to go, no, you weren't Orem. Orem could read them,
Yeah.
but they would still go to the same hospital. That's
Okay.
a PCI. They wouldn't have to bypass anything. They'd go to the same hospital.
Sure.
We would have to bypass American Fork to come down here.
Okay.
And so we would start doing things like that. We would start using new interventions, new things. And it was difficult for
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the docs, you know, because they didn't know what we were doing. And we had a medical control doctor who would tell the docs what we're doing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But even now, I'll put a plug in for my son, who actually started the CERT program in Lehi. He was working for us,
Okay.
working for West Valley City. But
Yeah.
West Valley City, now he's what I was here in West Valley City. He's a battalion chief, medical division.
Yeah.
And they're starting to carry blood to give pre-hospital, which is, they're the only agency in the state of Utah doing it. So
Yeah.
I like to say, if you ain't the lead dog, the view never changes.
Yeah.
So we got to keep moving forward, and that's what he's done for West Valley City and the citizens up in Salt Lake County.
Yeah.
And they're looking, all the other agencies are going, wow,
Yeah.
let's do this, you
Yeah.
know, so.
Are you seeing? So what else do you see? You know, do you see more continuing to go into the field? I mean, especially with technology advancing, where maybe you know some of the things that are more portable. I mean, because devices are more portable
Yeah.
than they used to be, right? So
Yeah.
those big
Yeah.
machines that maybe they have at a hospital can now be a small machine,
Yeah,
right? In the field.
ventilator, we use ventilators. We don't use them much pre-hospital, a little bit waste of time pre-hospital because you can bag somebody, but ventilators are smaller. They're using ultrasound in the field. We don't do a lot of things that we thought was necessary. For example, put people on backboards. We thought that, we got to protect their long spine.
Sure.
Backboards have been proven to do nothing for the long spine.
Oh, really? Okay.
And in 1965, a doc named Deke Farrington, he introduced backboards, but he introduced backboards as a means of conveyance. Moving a patient from point A to point B,
Sure.
put him on your gurney, get him off the backboard, and then
Yeah.
we morphed it into this archaic torture device where we would strap people to it. And it had been that way for years till
Yeah.
finally somebody, Brian Bledsoe out of Las Vegas, said, why?
Why are we doing
And I
this?
think that's the most important thing. If somebody never asks why,
Yeah.
right? And it's information seeking why, not a challenging why. You
Yeah.
know, why? Why are we doing this? You
Yeah.
know? Then it doesn't pique other people's interest to try to answer that why. And that's what happened with backboards.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, why are we doing this? It doesn't do anything. Why
Yeah.
are we still doing it?
Yeah.
Good thought. Why are we still doing it? So
I love that, and I that's a good question for anybody in any field to be
Yeah.
asking, right? Is why, and like you said, it's not threatening authority or any,
Yeah.
it's not in a mean way, but it's saying, well, is this the best way? And
Yeah.
maybe it is, but maybe it's not, right? Especially as technology advances and different things happen. Hey, maybe we can do better here, right?
well, I look at things through my background, through my schema,
Sure.
right? And my schema is not your schema.
Yeah.
I don't know what your background knowledge is, and you
Yeah.
don't know what my background knowledge is. And I use that as an example. I played on a nationally ranked fast pitch softball team for almost 20 years
Yeah.
as a first baseman.
Yeah.
Did you?
No.
And what did you like to do?
Yeah, I wrestled in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought wrestling was stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, roll around with another guy and get all sweaty, right?
Sure, I get it.
So if we go to my filing cabinet and look up wrestling, I
Yeah.
know that you roll around with another guy and get all sweaty. So that file folder's narrow.
Yeah.
Yours is full.
Yeah.
Fast pitch softball, yours is narrow, mine is full.
Yeah.
And so if we don't listen to and think of other ideas, as a matter of fact, I learned that from one of our firefighters who works, I think, in Orem now. You know, I had my aha moment when he said, he came out, we were dispatching to go to a big fire, and he says, well, why don't we do this, this, and this? You just kind of go away, little fireman.
Sure.
You know, I don't need your knowledge because I'm a battalion chief. And then I started thinking about, it's like, no, you know what? That
You
is
got
a good
point.
idea.
Yeah.
You know? we did modify. So
Yeah.
and that was a big epiphany for me, a big learning curve for me. It's like, I'm not the only one with good ideas.
Well, and that takes a level of humility, right? I mean, and anybody in any position of leadership should keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes we think, hey, if we're at top, we should know everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, these younger guys, they
see it differently.
They see it
look through
differently.
different eyes.
Yeah. No, I love that.
And that's how this has morphed. EMS has morphed. Somebody asked why. New doctors coming up, and with their scheme and their background. And if we didn't ask why, we would be. I give a lecture on the circuit that's called Because That's the Way We've Always Done It. Mm-hmm. And it is about asking why.
Why?
Why do you still do it that way? Why not, this way? And that's how we've learned it. And that's what I really like about, it's just thinking of new ways to do something.
Sure. And you're seeing that continue to progress then?
Oh, yeah, all the way through.
I mean, so we're continuing
Yeah.
to change things.
Yep,
I mean,
all the way
like you
through.
said, your son up in West Valley with the blood. And,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a new thing.
Yep, it's a new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we just continue to ask why, and it just makes it better for everybody,
Yeah.
And it's been fun. It's been fun to be on this ride, my e-ticket ride at Disneyland, to see where we were.
Yeah.
And what we could do and what we can do now is just vastly different. I mean, if I looked into the future,
Yeah.
like self-driving cars, come on.
Yeah.
There's nothing self-driving, it's like, wow,
Sure.
there's self-driving cars.
That's actually happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you were to look into the future as far as medicine goes, any things you see in the future there?
Well, when our baby was born, he was born with a heart defect called tetralogy of Fallot, and he was also missing a pulmonary valve. They had no idea how to fix it. They had to call Australia.
Wow.
They were the only ones that were doing any surgery,
Yeah.
and they had to call Australia. Now, TET babies are normal functioning kids, and
Yeah.
there's no issues. And so yeah.
So he could have lived at this day and age.
Yeah, and I just met a kid in California last week working on a heating and air conditioning unit for my son's boss, and he was in the Israeli army. A lot of the advances that we have has come out of Israel and what they're doing, the things that they're doing. And so if we're not looking around the world or looking to see different advances, I mean, my son and I and a couple other trained people went to Ukraine and taught some of their paramedic police.
Really?
And
is this pre-war or?
right after the war started.
Okay.
It's been going on for about a year.
Okay.
And had I looked at the map better of where we were going, I probably would not have gone there. As a matter of fact, the place it's called Pokrovsk. It's south of Dnipro.
Okay.
It's in the Donetsk region. It's being bombed now. But
Okay.
we went and trained the paramedic police, and just to watch them. I mean, we had interpreters, but just to watch them soak in, because this was new for them and it's old for us. But it's just like, wow, And then I'm in part of a program with Utah Valley University and the National Guard, where we go to Morocco and teach their fire department.
Oh, wow.
And we just had a contingency come back from Dominican Republic and teaching those people. So I'm glad that we're allowed to go out and do this. Because. And I would love to have somebody come in from, Finland or someone. Let's see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And let's learn that way too. I mean, so.
Why do you think the medical field has, so you could argue in business, trade secrets. Hey, I'm going to hold these to myself, right? I can't. I don't want to teach you because this gives me an advantage over here. Why do you think the medical field is different? I mean, I love that you're going to different places. You're wanting that knowledge. They're wanting that knowledge, and you're very willingly imparting it, right? I mean, why do you think it's different in your field?
I don't know. When I do my lectures, I've got 30, 40 lectures, canned lectures. I lost my thumb drive with all of them on it one day, and I was beside myself, but I found it. But I spend time researching. I spend time putting these lectures together. And when people say, can I have that? I used to say, no, I spent a lot of time putting this together. This is mine. And I've since changed my thoughts. Now, when I give them, I say, if anybody wants this information, just email me, and I don't send them a lecture. I send them in PDF, so they can rebuild it whatever they want. But I just think it's, maybe they don't have the means to be able to do the research. I gave a lecture on energy drinks and how it affects the body. And, these guys, one email I get from a teacher that says, I'm trying to change the school district up where I live in this little area and get energy drinks out of the schools. And because of how dangerous it is to teenagers and preteens, and I said, good, here's the information. I give them the articles that I researched, and if it changes somebody, it changes somebody, And I used to do that. I used to hoard all that stuff, but now it's like, if I wind up in Morocco, in Casablanca, and it's one of my guys that I've trained, that's what I want.
Love it.
I want, I want one of these other guys just going to throw a piece of meat in the back of an ambulance and go fast. You know?
Yeah. No, I love that. No, thank you. So you mentioned the CERT program and stuff like that. So, talk to me about what that program is and stuff.
So the one of the things that I've noticed in fire service now is there are people that wake up one morning and say, I want to be a firefighter, and they go and test and they get a job and they go back home. Back in the day, my wife likes to say in the day, back in the day when we did it, it was for community service.
Okay.
We wanted to protect our community. And I'm not saying that new guys coming in aren't doing that. They grow to love the community of the citizens that they're serving.
Sure.
There was a push years ago that people that were serving this community had to live in this community. And it goes, no, you can love this community and not have to live here, And so there are other people that want to serve the community but can't spare the time or are older in life or whatever. And so CERT, the Citizens Emergency Response Team, was kind of fledgling. It was new-ish in early 90s. And my son had worked with me at Sandy Fire. He worked in the pub ed department before he served his LDS mission. He came back and had his fire certs and could get a job and got hired by West Valley City. And he helped establish the CERT program at West Valley City. And that was just something he wanted to do. He speaks fluent Spanish, and so he was able to help bring that to the Spanish community out there. And then he came to me, and since I was in a position of leadership, he said, I think we should do a CERT program here. It's a good idea. Talked to the city, said, go ahead. And so we were able to train citizens, because if you think about it, if there's a disaster, the fire guys are going to the main hub of that disaster. But if it's a big disaster, who's going to take care of the community?
Sure.
Outside of where they're working, and we've got a lot of religious groups around that can be trained, and so it's like it just made sense. Let's get them trained up to do light rescue, light first aid, marking, maybe some radio communication, which would help us as we start triaging our crews to other areas and broadening our search patterns and things of that nature. We can go up to the north end of town. It helped when we had the floods in the late 80s. We had floods, and there was some CERT program wasn't established, but there were LDS wards that had people that would come out. They didn't have training per se, but they could fill sandbags. And so that just kind of morphed in, and then now they do training, and there's some very good people, and the city's been able to give them, a little bit of funding, that they have a radio trailer and some other rehab trailers and things like that. And that's been a big benefit, especially with smaller fire departments, to have those people come and help us with rehab. Fire guys get out of a fire, they can have a place to sit, maybe have a warm, cup of hot chocolate or a granola bar or something, and then they go back into the fight, So it's been a great benefit, and it's morphed. There's been some of the great pioneers. One of the initial pioneers was a guy that worked for Utah County and that set up all the radio systems in Utah County, and he lived in Lehi. It's like, let's tag him. So we have a great radio system set up, And so there's been some other guys that have been some really good pioneers, for the CERT program. So
and so if that's something, so how does somebody participate in that? If just a normal citizen, hey, sounds interesting. What do I do?
Yeah, the city has on their website, their CERT logo, and it's green with a white cross in it, and it has the CERT logo, which is a national logo. They just contact the city, the fire department, and find out when they're having their CERT meetings, and it's usually at one of the fire stations, and they sign up, they go up, they get trained, they do their own training, and they do some training in conjunction with fire guys, like burn pans, how to use fire extinguishers, things like that. And the fire guys need to help with the burn pans and some of the light rescue training and stuff like that. Some of the fire guys help with that as well, and get them all trained up. And then they have their periodic meetings and practice drills. We would do mass casualty drills, and that was the best thing, is to have a mass casualty drill and have the CERT people there so they can see how they integrated in with the fire guys and get to know the fire guys and know their place, instead of just standing on the sidelines. So yeah.
And is this something, so that's individuals, right? They go and stuff like that. Do you also, you mentioned like LDS wards, or just, let's say it's a group of people a church organization of something like that wants to participate, are they able to do something like that? Or, I mean,
there's a lot. I just got done teaching a CPR class last night it's called Just for Kids, Hives. Michelle Holbrook has 501c3 where they have older handicapped participants, and Michelle, they go and pick up these older handicapped guys who are 50, 60 years old, and they love being around their friends, and they get them out of the house, and they go and they go down to the Curtis Center, which is over south of the new hospital, and they can go there and they can do art and they can do dance. It just gets them out of the house, instead of just sitting around, and we just got done teaching them CPR because they have to have that CPR certification. And so, there are CPR classes that could be taught through the fire department. There are the CERT classes, and a lot of times they will do a PR. They'll come out from the fire department and go to, wards and do presentations. We do it through the university. We have high school kids come through the university because obviously we want them as students, later on. Yeah. And so, all somebody has to do, if they want to figure out if they can have a CERT presentation, is contact, it's probably Angie at the fire department, and she'll put them in contact with somebody who will contact them and say, what do you want? And we just need it for young men's, can you come and talk to us tonight or whatever,
And they'll do that. They'll do that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So again,
at least they did it before I left. We were doing it. I don't know. They may not do it any now.
Sure.
I don't know. But I'm pretty sure they do.
Okay. Good. Okay. Again, lots of opportunities to what I like is the community involvement, right? Because again, like you said, it's good to have multiple people that understand this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, if somebody wanted to go into, follow the career path of you and stuff like that, obviously things have changed in the last 40 years.
I'd say don't do it.
But, well, you didn't get your son, off the course.
True. That's true.
But what is the path, that somebody, they graduate high school, they're like, I really enjoy, emergency medicine.
I would tell anybody, if they're in high school, I would tell them to take the CNA classes or the EMT class at the high school level. You can't certify until you're 18, but you can be trained at a first responder type level, EMR. There might be classes that teach EMT. I'm not sure what the high schools are doing, but they need to, because we've had guys that went through paramedic school and got out in the field, and we can't give them real life scenarios.
Of course.
We just can't beat the crap out of somebody and say, okay, everybody fix him.
Go fix him. Sure.
So the first time they see, somebody who's maimed and in a car crash or hit by a car, is and we've had some that have gotten out and went, no, this isn't my bag of tea.
Sure.
And they leave the service. So I would tell anybody that's high school age, the brain gets developed at about the age of 23, and they should be able to handle some of the things that they see after the 23 and older. Younger than 23, their brain may not be able to adapt and take in what their eyes are actually seeing. And so, but I don't dissuade them, because you can certify at 18. So I'd say get into an EMT class, go through MTech, go through ours at Utah Valley University, go through somebody's EMT class.
Okay.
Get an idea and see what it's like. I would say go through ours, not because I teach there, but there's credits. It's a 9-credit class, you know, and they could use it towards a degree later on. But
because you don't necessarily have to have a degree to go into.
No. Yep. But go through it. See if it's something you can do, and if it's something that you can do, and if they want to get into the fire service, then I would say get your EMT, take the state certification or the national certification, get that certification out of the way.
Yeah.
And then the only place, there are other fire departments that will do their own in-house fire training.
Yeah.
But the one that you can apply for is through UFRA, Utah Fire Rescue Academy, which is in Provo, tied with Utah Valley University. Go and get your fire certifications. Yeah. It's a paramilitaristic type of group of people. They're pretty strict. But you can get the fire searches, you need firefighter 1, firefighter 2, hazmat, and hazmat awareness. You can get all those. And now you have the basis or the basic certification to get hired by a full-time department. Okay. There are full-time departments that will train you at those levels. And if you do get hired, even if you had those trainings, they will retrain you their way, right? Okay. But at least you're marketable. That's what I would say, is get that so you're marketable. And then start testing at fire departments. Test at different departments, just test over. You get the skill set of testing, see what other fire departments want. And then if you don't get hired, then advance your EMS certifications, right? Become an advanced EMT, which puts on more drugs and more invasive skills. And if you don't get hired then, get your paramedic and come back for the 2 semesters for paramedic. Mm-hmm. That makes you really marketable. A fire department would rather have you spend the $6,500 or
sure.
than have them have to spend it, you know, to put somebody through paramedic school. Now you're marketable.
Yeah.
South Jordan just announced that they're hiring guys that are in paramedic school. Mm. They'll hire them for the job. Mm. So
interesting.
There are some departments that really need, you know, and they always want good people.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say. And if you don't like it, go do something else.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you find that, you know, some of those fields, you know, paramedic and different things like that are also some of a stepping stone, you know, because, you know, for doctors and stuff like that, don't they have to have so many medical hours? Is it sometimes a stepping stone for those people too, I guess?
I think that we've successfully placed 8 to 10 people into medical school out of our paramedic program. Yeah. They've gone on to medical school. Okay. And they're ER docs somewhere now. Okay. And that is, they get that bug and they go, I just need more. Yeah. I mean, I think if they had mid-levels, when I was a nurse at the hospital, their mid-levels, which would be master's degree nurse practitioners, were only working in family practice. And I'm a blood and guts guy. Yep. And so I would not get my master's degree just to go work in a clinic and take temperatures. Sure. You know, I didn't want to do that.
You like to be the emergency parts.
Yeah, I like the blood and guts. Your worst day is my best day.
Yeah,
so.
Sure.
And so towards the end of my nursing career, they started getting mid-levels, you know, running ERs and stuff like that, you know, and I was too old to go back to school, so I didn't want to do it. But,
sure.
But yeah, now they do that, you know, and those guys, a lot of those guys, a lot of good friends of mine that were nursing friends of mine are now mid-levels working at the Level 1 Trauma Center, and they're just as good or better than some of the docs, you know. So, yeah, so it is a great stepping stone. We used to say when you come to paramedic school, you say all you want to be is a paramedic for the rest of your life. Now we don't say that. It's a good stepping stone for these guys to go on to other careers.
Sure. But it can also be a place that they stay too, I guess, right? I mean, you know, and that's so it sounds like you're saying, you know, because paramedics, there's mid-level and then there's the ER doctors, you know, so there's lots of different places to go for these people.
Yeah,
so,
a lot of places you can go.
Okay. Well, I love that. Any, if I go back to your career, any stories, you know, I mean, so you said you're a blood and guts guy kind of thing. Any stories that stand out or, you know, from that career, you know?
There's a lot of them. I should write a book. There was a couple of them. When the freeway was split, you know, there was the median down over on First East. There was 2 bridges. Now they're all connected, so it looks like one big bridge. But we get a call for a vehicle off the freeway and go by First East off of State Street. So again, we were still responding from home. And we weren't really volunteer. We were getting some money, you know, paid on call. Sure. So me and another friend of mine are the only 2 that showed up. Okay. And it was a car to come off the freeway. And we decided we better go. Yeah. You know, and we'll get people to show up after. Yeah. So we respond, we get up to the scene, and we're looking, and it's a pickup truck that's upside down, and it is flat. It is flat. And we're going, I don't know. So come on, Kenny, let's go see what we got. And I think we got 2 dead bodies inside there, you know. Sure. We walk up to it, we hear, hey, get us out of here. It's like, what? You know, we had no idea how somebody, you know, and then we had to get fire department to come help us get the doors off and stuff like that. Sure. It seemed like most of my funnier calls with my friend Kenny, he's a respiratory therapist, lives in Las Vegas now, but another full arrest was over in the old part of Lehi. Yeah. And there's a lot of the roads that had the big dip for water runoff. Yeah. And we were responding to this full arrest, just me and him. And he's driving, and I'm looking down, and I look up, and he's about to nosedive into this dip. Oh. And I yelled, dip, and we hit it, and the front of the ambulance comes up off the ground and then slams back down, and we broke a bunch of shelves, and now we're laughing. Yeah. I mean, that's the funniest thing. And we go to this full arrest, and we're trying to maintain composure. Sure. And the lady's out there, you know, can you help me? And we're, you know, because we just almost destroyed the ambulance. We sold that ambulance to Bluffdale, by the way. Anyways, and we're thinking of what damage we did. And anyways, we get in there, and sure enough, the guy's in full arrest. We're working the full arrest. Somebody shows up, but they don't bring the gurney in. We brought a backboard in. They didn't bring the gurney in, so now we got to carry him out on the backboard. Yeah. So as we're going out, we're not doing CPR because we got to move him. Sure. And we're trying to get to the ambulance, and Kenny hits the screen door with his butt and shatters the glass. And so we had already composed ourselves from laughing and the other thing. Now he's done this. We're trying not to laugh. Yeah. And the lady's crying. We're trying to be respectful. And then Kenny goes to step in the ambulance, and he slips, and he falls, and now the board's here, and the dead guy's here, and we're going like, oh, can this Keystone Cop get any better? You know, but we've had I was in a meeting and dispatch called me and they said, Chief, and I said, what? And they goes, you have an airplane crash. I go, wait, excuse me? He goes, you have an airplane crash. It's like, okay, I'm responding.
Yeah.
An airplane crash. You know,
Yeah.
we're trying to find it's a big airplane, it was a small
plane or something.
prop plane that came down up on 284 up by JCW's. We've had a lot of really, really, bad accidents, a lot of one good one over here. We get called to the address, we go busting inside the house, and there's an older couple watching TV, and they turn around, it's like, what? And we go, isn't this address? They said, yes. And dispatch comes on and says, oh, that address is in Cedar Fort. It's like, oh, geez. Sorry. Have a good day.
Sure.
We got to go to Cedar Fort.
Sure.
Because we used to serve at Cedar Fort. So, yeah, we've had there's a lot of different calls.
And so speak to me, for a minute on, the mental health part of it. So, you said, so you obviously enjoy your job. You've done this for a long time. Yeah. My guess is, you obviously see things that the rest of us don't.
You shouldn't.
And don't want to see.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, my dad was a PA, and he talked to me. He did ambulance actually for a little while, and he told me about a motorcycle scene one time, and I was like, I don't want to know anymore.
Yeah.
you know. So talk to me about that part of the job, because my guess is obviously there's some things you just don't want to see, right?
So it's interesting in family dinners now with my son, being what he does. We have our family discussions, and he'll say, Dad, remember that? And we talk about calls, and our family's just like, whatever. Yeah. And my wife has learned a lot. She has a lung issue, and so we work through that, and so she learns a lot that way, and she comes to my lectures. Mm-hmm. And so, she picks up a lot of education. And matter of fact, I used to bounce tests off of her. I would say, read this and tell me if you can come up with the answer, even though she's not medically trained. Yeah. If she can, by deductive reasoning, figure out the answer to the question, then the test was a good good test. Good. But yeah, the mental health portion of it, I wrote a PTSD lecture for EMS, and one of the studies that I read of Israeli ambulance personnel, and about 99% of all Israeli ambulance personnel has some form of PTSD. Really? And, we talk about that, and I think PTSD in the EMS service is probably more prevalent in volunteer agencies, to where they don't live at the station with the other guys. Yeah. They come home from the call, they clean up, and they go home, right? And here, the guys are sitting around for 2 days talking to each other. So they can kind of digest it? They can debrief, defuse themselves. Matter of fact, we had a bad call over at Meadow Elementary. A little girl was run over by a big truck. And we respond, we get up there. It's a fatal. She passed away. And we wanted to remove the company, the crew, from that situation. We want to get them out of the ambulance so they don't have any smells. We want to get them away from that. And we got them into a room, sequestered, and we said, okay, do you guys want to go home? We'll cover your shifts. And they said, no, we want to stay together. Yeah. We're family. We want to stay together. And so they wanted to stay and diffuse together. And I think that's one of the drawbacks that, like volunteer agencies or part-time agencies, they don't get the chance to diffuse a lot. And it's important to talk about it. Have a good spouse, somebody that will listen to you. Yeah. But I would venture a guess that almost everybody in EMS has got some form of PTSD. Sure. And so you obviously mentioned, hey, that's the benefit of talking together and stuff like that. Are there any other things that, you guys are trying to do to help with these kind of things, I guess, nowadays? Yeah, the sad thing is a lot of it comes up with gallows humor. We remember things. I mean, one of the calls I went on was a parachutist out at Cedar Valley. Yeah. And as we pulled up, I can hear him screaming out in the field. So that's good. His airway's good. If he's screaming, his airway's good. Sure. Right? Sure. But as I walked up to him, because we carried our gear through the field, he was on the side of a ditch. And I'm looking at him. It just doesn't look right. It's just like, and he was standing up on the side of a ditch. Yeah. Or kneeling on the side of the ditch. It's just like, well, get up and come on. Yeah. Let's get you out of here. And then I looked, and his legs weren't bent at the right place. Oh. His lower legs were snapped off, bent back, and he was like into the ground with his bones, It's like, and so, you just kind of, you compose yourself, but that's in my mind. It's just like, man, I can picture that, it's just like, what? Yeah. How does, people get themselves in, certain circumstances, but gallows humor, and a lot of people don't understand, some of the things that we say, and it is a coping mechanism. It's a big coping mechanism. Yeah. And we try to tell the crews, be careful when you get out of your rig, because you may be talking about a previous call and laughing about it. Yeah. And as you get out, people see you laughing, and they think you're laughing about their situation. Yes. So, fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
but again, it's good for them to do it. But just
We do.
perception, the public perception might be negative, and so you want to watch that.
They don't understand.
Yeah, they don't understand. But again, you're doing that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. This has been great talking to you. Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to bring up or talk about?
No, I just, I see people on Facebook and whatever complaining about, why does a fire engine and ambulance always have to go together?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's because it's because that's their crew. That's their makeup. If it's an ambulance call that needs to take only 2 people, then the ambulance goes and that fire truck goes back in service.
Yeah.
But if it's something like a full arrest, they need more hands.
Sure.
And so those more hands come out of that fire engine, right? And the people say, well, why don't you put everybody in the ambulance? Well, that's great. What if we get a fire call?
Yeah.
Then we have to go get the fire engine, right?
Yeah.
So it's things like that. And the Facebook could be a great tool, but it's also, why don't you just walk up to the fire station, knock on the door, or when the bay doors open, say, hey, can you guys show me around?
Yeah.
And can you answer some of my questions?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things, is to just, they're there to help you.
Yeah.
They may live there.
Yeah.
And there are people complain, why are they at the grocery store?
Yeah.
Well, we got to eat.
Yeah.
And we're not stocked with food, and they pay for their own food.
Yeah.
And their own condiments. They pay for their own.
Yeah.
It's not your tax dollars at work, you know. It's their own. So they go and they shop, and they usually shop on one day for the 2 days. Yeah. And somebody, different people cook, and so it's just things like that, the little misunderstandings that people have about the fire service.
And I've heard, so I did another interview, and he mentioned, like, why do they bring the fire truck to the grocery store? It's because if they get a call, they don't want to have to go back to the fire, because time is life. I mean, essentially, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the difference between life and death for somebody. So,
and they try to cut it. They try to, ambulance stand service, fire truck go shop, things like that, But, a big gigantic ladder truck, that's their piece of apparatus. Yeah. That's what they respond in, know, and so that's what they've got to take, you know. So
no, that's good. That's good. Anything else?
Yeah, this is good.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Rick, thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking about, obviously, your life and then obviously what's going on here in Lehi and all the different things and stuff. You've done a lot of good work, and it sounds like you're continuing to do it. And I'd say, hey, stay in it as long as you want. Yeah. Don't worry about those other guys. We need the wisdom of the older guys. So, so stay in it. So
I got to do something.
Yeah, you got to do exactly. You're going to be bored otherwise, right? You're that type of guy. I can tell. So. It's good for you to be working. So anyhow, thank you, Rick. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on Roots and Branches of Lehi. I hope today's story helped you feel a little more connected to the people who make up our community. Remember, every person here has a unique story, and together, we're what makes Lehi feel like home. If you know someone who would be a great fit for this podcast, please fill out the form in the show notes so we can reach out and schedule an interview. We'd love to hear from you. A big thank you to our sponsors, the Work Harding Home Mortgage Team and Play Harding Nightly Vacation Rentals, for supporting this show and helping us bring our community closer together. Until next time, keep growing those roots and reaching out to your branches. Take care.